Hi everyone and welcome back. First of all, I want to say that you were really good at building a conceptual understanding and also the statement of inquiries, and also that you've developed really interesting assessment tasks using the GRASP module. So I have enjoyed reading from you all week. So let's go to module 3. First thing you are going to notice is that I will once again do a virtual meeting on Friday or Saturday, depending on the hours. And you're more than welcome to join in if you have any questions or things that you want to discuss. So now let's go to the first learning activity, and also the first and the third are linked because they both address the approaches to learning skills. So if I click on the first learning engagement activity and on my post, what you'll see here is attached is the ATL Approaches to Learning Skills Appendix, which comes from the MYP From Principle into Practice guide. And if you click on it, the idea is just to take a look at it and to read it actually, and to try to see one thing that you've learned to do so far in this workshop, and also one thing that you want to develop. So if I click on it, what you'll see is that there are skills categories here and clusters, and also skills indicators. So for the vocabulary part, let's say that all of these dots refers to skill indicators, and you want to select one of the skill indicators eventually, and you are going to build to design activities in order to develop these skills for your students. So in the first learning engagement activity, you just take a look at all of these categories, whether that be the communication skills and also the social skills, self-management skills, thinking skills, and also reflection skills. So you take a look at it, and I select one which presents something that you've developed so far, and one which is something that you want to develop, because as is written often with the IB, we are lifelong learners. So even there are many of these skills indicators which I'm still developing. So this is for the first learning engagement activity. I'll go directly to the third one because it is linked. When you click on it, you'll see we want to build a sentence which looks like this one in order for the students to, and then we have to identify a strand from the mathematics guide. I'll come back to that. And also we say student must, and then we identify the skills indicator, which is one of these. Okay, so let's say that it would be to organize or depict information logically. So that could be linked to the mathematics guide criterion C. So if I go to the mathematics guide, and if I go to criterion C, let's say that I would be like in year 3. Let's say that you want to, what was it again? Organize and depict information logically. We have here the strand. Okay, so this is the objectives. These are the objectives, which is like criterion C would be the objective, and then we have the strand, which would be present work that is consistently organized using logical structure. So that strand can be addressed. We could put it here in order for students to, and then we would say to present work that is consistently organized using a logical structure. Then we would say students must, and then we could say organize and depict information logically. So we identify both the strand, which will be assessed, and also the skill indicator. But also before that, in order to set us up in the context, we identify the ATL category, which would be here, like on top, the grade one here, like communication. Of course, that's not maybe the most important thing, but let's say the thinking skills, this would be the ATL category. And then it would be the ATL skill cluster, which would be here either critical thinking skills, creative thinking skills, or transfer skills. So for that ATL category, there are 3 skill clusters. So you identify the category, the cluster, and then you write a sentence. Of course, we would like at least an outline of how it would be taught in the unit plan. And it would go further, actually. Normally, we would try to have at least 2 activities. One which would be an explicit activity where we teach the students how to develop something about that skill, and then another implicit activity where they are using it, but still transferring their newly learned skill, developed skill, and transferring it into another activity in order to improve. Because we want to teach strategies in order to develop these skills explicitly, that's why we will not select 10 skills indicators for a unit plan, because we wouldn't have time. We would be teaching skills all the way. Although in design, I noticed that when we are teaching design, there are more skills, but in mathematics, normally we try to select 1 or perhaps a few that we will develop using activities. And of course, all of that would go in the ATL school chart, where you are planning collaboratively with the other teachers how the skills are developed through time, let's say for the 5 years. And if you would go to the first page of that appendix, you would see that there are many levels. We're starting as beginners and also then learners. They are developing the skill, they're using it, and eventually you want them to be experts. And when we are planning collectively the development of these skills, we can select what is the level that we expect the students to be at first, and what we want to develop, so that perhaps the teacher in another subject or the year after can develop that skill further, and so on until they become experts at the end of the MYP. So it's something which is really something which is important about the teaching approaches to teaching, if I may say, of the IB. So you will need, of course, here the guide in order to look at the strength and to identify the strengths. Sometimes there are more than one, once again, but we are trying to be as precise as possible. And all of that will go in the unit plans after that, and I'll tell you once again how later. If I go at the second learning engagement activity, you will go back to your GRASP assessment task, and you will use the mathematics guide, and then you will select the strengths, the objectives and strengths that you are going to evaluate. So that actually would be the last S of the GRASP module. So I have here, once again, I had put all of these documents in the second module here in the MYP unit planner, but if you have not downloaded these documents, I have put all these also here in the learning engagement too. At this point, we expect you to copy paste all of the information. You take a look, you update it, you try to improve it, but you have to download, if you have not done that before, the unit planner, which is blank, and then to try to fill it up. Once again, these 2 other documents help you in saying what you expect to put in it. So, and also the mathematics guide. So the 2 sections that we want to fill here, because normally all of these at first, the key concept, related concept up to the statement of inquiry has to be done. So just copy paste the updated version. And now we can do these 3 parts. The objectives would be like criterion A, let's say criterion D, and then we would identify the strands. So normally we would copy paste everything, but it's not always easy coming from the IB documents, but this is the idea. So we would identify everything that we'll be evaluating using the GRASP assessment task, which is here. So we add the S at the end to say the strands, but we see it also with the objectives, so it doesn't really matter actually. Also, here you had done before, it was the 5th learning engagement activity of module 5, module 2, learning engagement 5. We had to link like the summative assessment task with the statement of inquiry, and that the GRASP was also done in module 2 in, I think, the 3rd learning engagement activity, if I remember, and on the 4th one. So, sorry, this is not the one. So let's say that you feel that, you just add the S here, and also you identify the strands, and all that will be like the end of the 2nd learning engagement activity. So it's important to take time to really select the strands, and remember that the strands from criterion A are not to be put at the same time as criterion D. Criterion A is more like an exam, criterion D is applying to real life. It's one task, criterion A are many problems, so these are different. So although when you read the text it seems logic, you would not add criterion A with a criterion D task. Okay, it doesn't work that way, because it is one is included in the other, like the strands of criterion A are included in criterion D, the first two, so the second, third one, so it's about the same. So if I would take a look at it really fast once again, selecting appropriate mathematics and applying it successfully are included already here in criterion D, when we see select appropriate mathematical strategies and apply it, the selected mathematical strategies to reach correct solutions. So just don't put both. It's either A or D. Normally when we build GRASP, authentic assessment task, I expect you to either choose B or D, and perhaps link C with either B or D. So take a look at that. This is the objective of that. I'll go back here to the 3rd module. In the 4th learning engagement task, there are references. I don't give them specifically to you. I let you research for that and to try to see what it means for you, actually. Also not to have a discussion about these words. So you have to do that. It goes pretty fast actually. And also in the 5th learning engagement activity, there are a few pages in the MYP from principle into practice about inclusion and differentiation, which we are going to use in the last module actually. So we just take a look at that document, either page 27 of MYP from principles into practice, or also that document which is really interesting about diversity in the classroom. The last thing I want to do actually is to go on the My IB, just to show you another tool that you have about designing unit plans. In the Program Resource Center, you have in the MYP, it'll be a program. If you are not, if you don't have access to it, just ask you can subscribe to it, but your school coordinator is the one who can give you access once you select your role. So we have a difficulty with that. We could do that in the virtual meeting, or I could explain it later. So there is a part about the unit plans, and there are videos planning here, MYP unit planning, and all of these are videos which are really interesting, so I refer you to that. So that was the last thing I wanted to say, and I want to wish you a really good week, everyone.